So I'd like to just make a few words about the Brazilian presidential election. Um, I tend to follow big elections because they always have a outcome for the direction of geopolitics. So a big country like Brazil, of course, has certain interests for me from that perspective. Um, so I'll just give a brief introduction. Obviously this is not for Brazilians, but you're going to know anyway. But for non-Brazilians, here's a quick introduction. The two main candidates are Dilma Rousseff, who represents the Workers' Party, and her home constituency, her home state, is Minas Gerais. Her running mate is Miguel Temer. Apologies if I've pronounced that wrong. And the opposition candidate is Neves. He represents the Brazilian Social Democratic Party. He is also from Minas Gerais, and his running mate is Lucio Nunes. There was a third candidate, Marina Silva, who briefly got quite a lot of attention. She was even called the Brazilian Obama, but she dropped out a while back, and she has subsequently endorsed Neves. It's no secret that her and Dilma Rousseff have quite a rocky relationship. So, this is the second runoff, and I imagine results will be quite soon. Dilma Rousseff is incumbent president. She's been president since 2010. Just to give you a little bit of background about her, she had actually got an interesting past. She actually has an interesting past. She had been involved in Marxist and left-wing urban guerrilla groups. She suffered torture under the military dictatorship. She was jailed from 1970 to 72. So she's long been involved in social democratic politics. She was chief of staff under the very popular President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, commonly known in Brazil as Lula. She's the 36th president of Brazil. She is 66 years old, and she has something of a mixed record, in the sense that certainly this year, from what I gather, it's been a rocky year for her. The World Cup was flawed with problems with management and public sector protests and so on. Nevertheless, she seems to remain personally quite popular, at least that's my perception. According to Wikipedia, she is the daughter of a Bulgarian entrepreneur. And although she was raised in an upper middle class household in Belo Horizonte, she has a social democratic political background. So that is Dilma Rousseff. I don't want to speak too much in detail about her presidency because, speaking candidly, I haven't followed it inside out. Her opposition is a man called Neves. He is 54 years old. He represents the Brazilian Social Democracy Party. She has sort of tried to, Mrs. Rousseff has sort of tried to portray him as the candidate for big business, for the wealthy. On his side, his supporters would say that he's going to get Brazil back on track and deal with corruption. So, as with any democratic election, there's compelling arguments on both sides. Brazil is the world's 5th most populous country. It's the world's, I believe, 4th most populous. Let's see. 4th largest, I should say, by area. So 5th most populous, a population of about 202 million people. 4th largest by area, and also it is the world's 4th largest democracy after India, the United States and Indonesia. So it's a pretty significant country. It is of course one of the BRICS, the Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, which is powerful emerging economies. Brazil went through a democratic process about 20-30 years ago, I believe, and it's certainly an interesting country. I believe it's got a lot of potential, and it has been described as potentially the world's first green superpower. It is a potential superpower. It won't get there before China, but I do think in the future it could certainly have superpower status. It's got a fast GDP growth rate, although poverty remains a big issue. Other issues from my perspective are environmental issues. Deforestation remains a very serious problem. Crime in Brazil is a very serious problem. although it has to be said that this is not consistent. Some years are lower than other years, but nevertheless, Brazil does have a very serious problem with violent crime. So whoever leads Brazil is going to have a big job on their hands, whether it be another 4 years of Mrs. Rousseff or whether it be Ecio Neves. And I can't speak much about him, I really don't know much about him. I did meet a Brazilian a few weeks ago and I asked her opinion on this. She's a Rousseff supporter, and she actually said that Mr. Neves, one of his planes, had been found full of cocaine. If that's true, it's obviously put serious question marks over his campaign, but I haven't been able to find sources for that. So yeah, pretty soon we're going to find out the result. Will it be another 4 years of Mrs. Rousseff, or will it be the beginning of the presidency of Ecio Neves? Incidentally, it goes without saying, Mrs. Rousseff is Brazil's first woman president. By extension, she's one of the most powerful women in the world, along with Angela Merkel and others. So yeah, it's interesting. So if you're a Brazilian, apologies for my lack of Portuguese. I can't speak Portuguese, which is unfortunately I haven't been able to watch the debates. If I could speak Portuguese, I certainly would be. Let me know your thoughts. Who do you think should be your next president? Should it be Mrs. Rousseff or should it be Ecio Neves? What direction do you think Brazil will take under either leader, both for Brazil and for Brazil's position in the world? Thank you. Let me know your thoughts.